The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
Will you clean mine so I can use it?
Yeah, you guys. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Monday, March 10th. And today is National Women and Girls HIV Awareness Day, you guys. I think that's an important thing.
Absolutely.
I definitely don't want to catch HIV or AIDS from some woman.
No. Would it be better from a guy?
Whoa. That wouldn't be a reality in my world. Maybe in yours, but not mine. It's also...
I am from Minnesota, but no.
Oh. It's also National Pack Your Lunch Day. When you get out to the racetrack, Matt, do you have a lunch packed?
I do. I keep it mids. I bring home lunches only.
Only bologna sandwiches with no mustard or mayonnaise.
Whoa, yeah, it's got to be mids.
Yes, that's a pretty mids lunch.
Mids. That's not mids, dude. That's the swag. That's the swaggiest swag there is.
Oh man, it's also National Mario Day, you guys. Shout out to Super Mario.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not Mario who killed the United Health. Not that Mario.
No. Even though there was a Luigi involved.
Luigi Mangione.
And is also National Napping Day today, you guys.
Oh, I'm definitely
so it's a perfect day.
2 a.m. meeting.
Yeah, it's a perfect day to have the bobcat because bobcats love to take cat naps. You know what I'm saying, Matt?
I know. I'm looking at him on my security monitors left and right here at the headquarters, and I don't see him. He's out in these streets.
He's out prowling.
If I see him, I may jet out to grab him to bring him on the news today.
That would be great. He's literally catting off right now.
It is nap day.
Fair enough. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So thank you to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we are going to kick it off with the man, the myth, the legend. That's right, Mr. Jesse Barney. He's the founder of Barney Design Co. and can help your brand elevate to the highest plateaus of highest plateaus. That's right, it is none other than the man, Mr. Jesse Barney.
Yeah, I love the clapping that I can't hear. I'm just trying to wait.
It's there, bro. It's there. I promise.
I know it's there. I know it's there. That's why I just talk some dumb.
You got the clap, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Yarrow, thank you. I've had the clap since 1996.
Whoa, easy
all right,
there.
My story comes out of Science Alert this morning. I'm really interested in this story. The headline is Psilocybin puts rat brains back together after mild head trauma. Scientists are investigating whether the psychedelic ingredient in magic mushrooms can put a brain back together after head injuries. Preliminary research on female rats, which is not yet peer-reviewed, has absolutely stunned, quote-unquote, researchers at Northeastern University with its possibilities. In a preprint of the paper, the authors explain how psilocybin was able to restore brain function in adult rodents after a series of mild repetitive head injuries designed to mimic the sort of damage that typically affects athletes, military personnel, the elderly, and victims of domestic violence. While the same benefits of psilocybin may not occur in human brains, the results among rodents align with growing clinical research that suggests psilocybin can reduce brain inflammation and change how our brains are wired. Not only does the drug seem to improve brain connections, it may alter the very way our central nervous system processes and shares information. Initial research on humans suggests psilocybin's effects on the brain may help those with depression when combined with therapy, as well as those with anorexia, substance abuse, and various other mental health disorders. We know that. In some studies on animals, the drug can even regrow lost neural connections. Scientists are now exploring whether similar benefits can treat a concussion crisis. To test this idea, researchers gave what they describe as bump on the head ice pack injuries to 16 adult female rats without anesthesia for 3 days in a row. Half an hour after each of the daily injuries, half of the rats received an injection of psilocybin. Really did incredible things, says psychologist Craig Ferris from Northeastern University. What we found was that with head injuries, functional connections go down across the brain. You give the psilocybin, and not only does it return to normal, but the brain becomes hyperconnected. On the third day of the experiment, scientists scanned the brains of all their rats, including 8 control subjects that did not receive any knocks to the head. Then they scanned the brains again 22 days later before euthanizing the rats for further tissue analysis. The team says that the results from that experience look similar to what you'd see in MRI scanners of people after repetitive traumatic brain injury. Compared to the rats that received head knocks without psilocybin, however, those rats given a small dose of the psychedelic treatment showed reduced swelling in their brains. They still had more than rats given no knocks at all, but the overall harm was significantly alleviated. This was especially true in brain regions like the hippocampus, somatosensory cortex, prefrontal cortex, thalamus, cerebellum, olfactory system, and basal ganglia. The authors also noted the rats treated with psilocybin showed reduced hyperreactivity to CO2 following their head injuries and dramatic differences in functional connectivity. I had to look that up. Hyperreactivity to CO2 just means that you have more CO2 in your bloodstream and in the brain area, which is a problem. The untreated rats with mild head injuries showed few network connections with the thalamus and the sensory motor cortex, whereas connections in the treated rats were very pronounced and more similar to rats who had not received any head knocks. Last but not least, the team found a significant increase in phosphorylated tau, which is a protein linked to dementia, in those rats who had received head knocks without psilocybin. The ability of psilocybin to reduce tau phosphorylation suggests potential therapeutic applications beyond repetitive mild traumatic brain injury, possibly extending to other tau-related neurodegenerative disorders. In other words, it could reduce or eliminate dementia. This translational model successfully bridges bench to bedside by replicating clinical observations and identifies psilocybin as promising therapeutic agent for repetitive mild head injury and its neurodegenerative consequences. But it's not just the sports bench where this new type of treatment could prove life-changing. If the symptoms of mild traumatic brain injury persist, they can increase the risk of dementia, Parkinson's disease, and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. Figuring out how to treat brain damage before it causes chronic issues is an ongoing challenge for neuroscientists. Psilocybin could be the ticket to better preventative therapies. The preprint was published in BioRxiv. This study is just really awesome. It is in preprint, so they haven't done the peer review to make sure that they didn't make any mistakes or do anything wrong. But the promise of being able to be hit on the head, especially for football players, boxers, and other athletes, and take psilocybin and restore and regrow connections that are lost from concussion, is pretty awesome. So I'm going to toss this over to see what.
I just keep thinking about the article where the rats were eating all the evidence in the locker rooms. I wonder if they could see how those in the New York. Remember the New York police, the evidence lockers.
I thought that was
grab those rats and see how they're doing.
I thought that was the rats in like Tennessee or something, in Texas somewhere.
Oh, it's Texas. Yep.
Yeah.
Texas. I got it right here.
Yeah.
Sure, it was the rats that were stealing all the weed.
We get them all buff rats. They eat the steroids, and then the mushroom rats are more healed. And
Well, you got to consider the source, right? You got some police officers who are like, "Hey, it disappeared on our watch. It was the mice. It was the mice." So I'm not so sure about that. And I have a couple comments about your article. I mean, first of all, it talked about minor head. I don't know about you guys, but coming off a great weekend, I am far more into major head than minor head. Just a lot more enjoyable, a lot more pleasure involved. And then you talked about this thing being peer reviewed. I have no idea how rats are able to review the research of other rats. Like, what do they do with that? They get together, they chop it up, they talk about it, maybe split a little bit of cheese. It's hard for me to understand how that process works.
The comedy's great there, Yarrow, but come on, don't you have any comments on the possibility of fixing brain injuries with psilocybin? I mean, sounds pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, it does. And the and is, because I always like to be the and. In spite of my love of football, as you're telling me about the promise for traumatic brain injuries, I'm questioning our love of boxing and football. I'm like, those are maybe like, I hate to say this, but I'm like, God, my love of the Super Bowl might not be as important as protecting the next generation of youths and their athletic endeavors. And I worry a bit about, the damage, not just to the brain, but to their knees and all the other body parts. And like, not that everybody should go from football to synchronized swimming, but those are two sports that I question whether we're getting enough out of them compared with what it's costing the participants.
Well, on that note, I'm not sure how old you have kids, right?
He has kids. He's the second dopest dad according to his kids.
Oh, I'm the second dopest dad, I thought.
Well,
anyways, I don't know if you have kids that are of age to play football or up to high school, but they're delaying tackle football longer and longer and longer. I have a son who's almost 12, and he's absolutely angry about the fact that they won't let him do tackle football. And we keep explaining to him, dude, you don't need concussions at 11. It's like, wait. If you really want to play, okay, I get it. And so there's that aspect, Yarrow, where kids want to play.
Yeah, let the kids play. Quit being such haters.
And it's going to get to where people love football. Nobody's ever going to stop liking contact sports. This is as old as the gladiators in the Colosseum themselves, right? I don't think we're going to get rid of that. So anything we can do to give these people tools to heal when they hurt themselves, don't you think that's a good thing?
I do.
I agree. I mean, I played contact football, and football obviously has changed quite a bit. And I remember vividly at 10, 11, and 12 years old, it was smash mouth, snot bubble, like hit them as hard as you can.
Yeah, take their head off.
We all got concussions. I
never did.
Chronic brain, what is it, CTE? I think that's what they call it,
CTE,
right?
yeah.
My brothers as well. My little sister even played contact football. And now with all the science coming out, my sister will not let her sons play. They wrestle and, they play different sports. And, I ended up transitioning to rugby in college, which is fundamentally a different way of tackling. And you're not skull to skull, smashing your skull together, which does, rattles your brain around. And it's like being in 20 or 30 low speed car crashes playing in a football game. I played football for many, many years. So I'm excited about this psilocybin medicine, possibility of fixing that, because you're seeing more and more contact sports. The new one that Dana White's pushing, where dudes are just bitch slapping the crap out of each other they're standing there and just slapping each other, the whole slap sport thing.
Yeah.
Those guys would be the perfect case studies for psilocybin. Those guys right there.
Cannabis is a contact sport.
It is.
But it's funny because I used to play rugby in my trailer park when we were kids, Matt. We just called it a different game. We didn't call it rugby.
You just called it smear the queer. Or
smear the queer. Yep, smear the queer was the name of the game.
I guess can't say that now in California.
I don't know. We're both in California. We just said it.
You can say whatever you want.
The contact sport with cannabis is dodge the rats.
Dodge the rats. Oh man, that's what I'm saying. That's fair. That's fair.
Well,
fair.
To summarize, what we're going to see is if this does go through peer review well, and they did the study well, which I assume they probably did, then the next step is going to be actually applying this same study to humans and seeing if it does the same kind of regenerative brain fixing that's happening in these rats. And anecdotally, I believe that this is going to be proven true, and it's just going to be another proof of a plant medicine that heals humans in radical ways, and that we should legalize drugs, guys.
Did it say where they actually did these studies at?
Yeah.
Were they done in the U.S.?
University.
Where?
Yeah, Northeastern University.
Northeastern. Okay, interesting. Because a lot of times they'll do these studies out of the country, and then they won't have as much substance, so to say, or weight behind them as far as how the academia of America perceive them.
Yeah, no, this is one of the first studies. They did note that there's other studies that have shown that psilocybin will regrow neural pathways, and it's also shown to regrow cell growth. So these scientists were like, well, if it's regrows neural pathways and it encourages cell growth, maybe it'll actually regrow brain areas. And so they set about trying to cause injury to these rats and then give them psilocybin, and
so they gave them ooey knocks on their head.
Yeah, ooey knocks.
Yeah. You know why they're called ooey knocks?
No.
Because every time when you touch them, you're like ooey, ooey. That's why they call them that. Just in case you were wondering.
Yeah, so it looks promising. I
think this is a fantastic news. This is a great way to start off the week, Jesse, with a great positive story. And on that, we are going to roll into our first commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Shuffle, jive.
I have 3 windows open.
And we are back, you guys. Man, oh man. I'm gonna roll into my first story. I have 2 stories for you guys today. You guys ready for this?
Let's go.
All right. Well, Tim Scott, and I so wish Rico was here today, just because he's such a hater on safe banking. But whatever. I guess we're just gonna have to let him watch this on this plane ride.
I'm filling in. I'll hate on safe banking because I've been hating on it for what's it been, like 10 years? They've been talking about it.
All right. Well, Tim Scott introduces a Senate bill to address debanking over reputational risk. You guys, that's right. Scott's bill comes after the committee held a debanking hearing and met with leaders of large U.S. banks. Now, legislation in the Senate aims to address regulatory language that has prompted financial institutions to debank clients involved in certain industries. Senate Banking Committee Chairman Tim Scott, Republican from South Carolina, introduced a bill known as the Financial Integrity and Regulation Management, better known as the FIRM Act, which would eliminate references to reputational risk as a measure used to determine the safety and soundness of a financial institution. The legislation would also eliminate federal banking agencies' ability to move forward with new rules or guidance using reputational risk to regulate financial institutions and require those agencies to report to Congress about their elimination of reputational risk in bank oversight. In a quote, they say, "It's clear that the federal regulators have abused reputational risk by carrying out a political agenda against federally legal businesses," Scott said. This legislation, which eliminates references to reputational risk in regulatory supervision, is the first step once and for all, he says. The bill is comprised by a dozen Republican senators who are members of the Senate Banking Committee and was introduced after the panel held a hearing on debanking early February. Federal laws and financial regulations on the books require institutions in the banking industry to close accounts over concerns about issues like money laundering or illicit financial activities, while reputational risk is also considered in those decisions. Uncertainty surrounding emerging industries that have unclear regulatory frameworks, such as digital assets like crypto or cannabis businesses in states with legal marijuana, has contributed to debanking. Concerns over reputational risk or other regulatory considerations have also led to firearm makers and dealers being debanked as well. And Scott said at the hearing that he is, in quotes, committed to a bipartisan solution to stop this form of discrimination. Though his bill only has GOP support at the time, any debanking legislation will require bipartisan support to overcome the Senate's 60-vote threshold for legislative filibuster. Scott also hosted a roundtable last month to discuss debanking issues with leaders of large U.S. banks, including J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, and Capital One CEO Richard Fairbank, Wells Fargo CEO Charles Scharf, and U.S. Bank CEO Andrew Sincere, PNC CEO Bill Demchak, and Truist CEO Bill Rogers. Well, you guys, lots of CEOs at the end of that article, but nonetheless, it looks like we finally have some legislation in place to remove Operation Choke Point, and maybe we can get some bank accounts, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I take it back. I'm not going to take Rico's stance. How is this a partisan issue?
The only thing that I could think of...
The actual...
Well, you know what the Democrats like to say is like, oh, you know what? We're not just going to pass a bill for rich white men and da-da-da-da-da. And so they're probably going to frame it in that capacity because that's what they like to do best is play the race cards and race bait and whatnot. But, who knows? Time will tell.
I can't fathom how anyone could oppose safe banking across the board. First of all, the fact that Operation Choke Point exists at all and it was introduced under Obama and it was used to crush not just the cannabis industry, but you're talking about crypto, you're talking about technology, you're talking about people in
I mean, when Obama first got in, there wasn't even crypto, so it didn't even start off as crypto. It started off as cannabis.
It was all of them. It was crypto. Crypto did exist.
I don't know about all that.
Bitcoin's been around for way longer than that.
Are you sure?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. I
bought my first Bitcoin in 2005.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. So they targeted crypto. They targeted adult industries. They targeted even ATM companies, anybody that was doing financial industries and cannabis. There's so many Americans and small business owners who have been targeted with our Operation Choke Point. And their bank accounts have been shut down. It's literally like it's talk about Nazi. This is actually Gestapo style stuff of shutting down people from operating freely just because they operate in an industry you don't like. And how is this a partisan issue? Why are the Democrats not jumping up and down to end this? This seems like this would actually be their issue, not a conservative issue. Like you would think that the
but the Democrats are the ones.
Cannabis.
The Democrats are the ones that created this issue.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's crazy about it. It's totally upside down. You would think that the conservatives would be the ones saying, shut down the adult industry, shut down the cannabis industry, shut down weird money. We don't want any of that. But instead, it's the Democrats. It just makes no sense.
What do you got to say, Yarrow?
I asked my Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and she's my representative here in Minnesota, what's up with the Safe Banking Act? She sits on the caucus, the Democrat cannabis caucus, and she didn't know what it's going to be.
Well, here's what I would say. For starters, safe banking doesn't offer the promise that the word would otherwise imply. And it has been a massive foist by the executive branch to the legislative branch to act as if there needed to be the passage of a bill in order to drastically change the cost of banking to the cannabis industry, which could be done without passage of any bills by the executive branch by changing the requirements for the suspicious activity reporting, which would limit the cost to banks to compliantly bank cannabis cash. So the entire premise that anything needs to be passed in order to provide relief and a lowering of costs to the industry is bullshit. And the safe banking has been teed up in some iteration for so long that it's kind of a legislative joke in my mind. In addition, this article talks about wanting to make sure that banks don't get to decide not to bank industries due to reputational risk, which we have to think about the opposite side of the coin on that, which is if a bank is a private enterprise, do we want the government mandating that a bank doesn't get to pick and choose its customers? If there was the Men Boys Love Association and they wanted to open up their treasury account at a bank, are we now saying that government is going to dictate that a private business can't choose who it does business with? Because if that is the case and you want to have uniformity across your philosophical perspective, it also means that we're telling a bakery in Colorado that you have to serve anybody, even if you don't agree with their choices, and even if you don't want to make a wedding cake for two gay men getting married. You really come up against a philosophical discussion, and the only way that makes sense for anybody is if they have continuity in the way that they apply that uniformly across multiple industries and multiple scenarios.
I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I think you're right. This doesn't need to be legislation. And that's, again, why this is totally bullshit. And it's interesting that they don't do it. And the only way that they come up with this is as a bill. And then on top of it, the only people supporting it are Republicans. That's just odd to me. All of that's odd. And this shouldn't exist in the first place. Americans should be up in arms across the board. Every American in this country should be pissed off that there's any other American that's having their bank account shut down. Not because they're doing anything illegal, but just because you're doing something they don't like. That's not American at all.
No.
It is absolutely American to allow people who stand up private enterprise to have say over who they do business with. And if the government wants to solve that, the government can't.
That's not what Operation Choke Point is.
If the government wants to solve that, the government can stand up a government bank and say, we don't worry, we don't care, we don't have any reservations about reputational risk. Now, what this senator is saying...
Reputational risk, dude, the reputational risk comes because it's pressure coming through the FDIC, where the FDIC is threatening the bank, saying, we will remove your FDIC status if you don't debank these people. It's not from the banks. It's coming directly from the federal government. That's the problem. It's not the bank saying, oh, we don't think this is safe. It's the government telling you it's not safe. We will screw with you if you don't debank these people.
Critical point of just clarification. The FDIC is not a government institution.
The FDIC is not the federal department. It's not an institution.
It is not it is an independent agency. It is not a government institution.
Who controls them?
Well, we'll have to cover that another day.
The SEC?
Doge needs to come in.
Down from the government.
Call in Doge. Call in Doge.
Illuminati controls the FDIC. Everybody knows that.
Oh boy.
Exactly.
Oh
it's the
boy.
Federal Reserve and it's the SEC, and they're in concert. And this comes directly from Operation Choke Point, which is literally a government initiative that uses the FDIC as a tool. You can look it up. It's very easy to research.
I just don't know why they pick on cannabis businesses. It's so illogical.
Not just cannabis either. It's cannabis. It's crypto. It's adult industries. If you have an ATM company, they might debank you because they think you're dealing in a lot of cash.
Firearms.
And cash is a problem. The guns.
But here's the thing. When Fiona Ma did her listening tour back in 2017 to try to solve the banking issue for cannabis, one of the ideas that was floated was the idea of a state chartered bank. So
I remember
the
this.
Industry didn't have to worry about private enterprise not banking it. And she did a great job going up and down the state, saying the same speech with the same jokes and listening. Not that anything changed, but we had a proof of concept with that, with banks that served farmers in the Midwest going back to, I think, the 1940s. The government could have chosen to stand up a bank that was not discriminating against certain industries, put all of its retirement accounts, its CalPERS, its AllPERS, all of that stuff, and create a financial institution that would have allowed for a less discriminatory approach towards this industry, and they didn't. And so all I'm saying is I would prefer sometimes the government to solve the solution by building the vehicle that would solve it versus telling private enterprise, hey, you need to do better. And you're right, Jesse, that the FDIC is the one that has been pressuring these banks. But the federal government, if they wanted to solve this, would have made executive choices in the executive branch. It didn't require Congress to pass anything to make banking cheaper to the cannabis industry. They haven't done that. And so what the government does a really good job of at the same time is simultaneously pretending to provide a solution while pointing the finger at itself and saying this is why it can't get further progress. And in my mind, that's what's continuing to happen here with this story today.
I agree with that. I'm going to correct you on one thing. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is an independent agency of the United States government. The FDIC was created by Congress to protect depositors from losses if an insured bank fails. It is a government agency that is an independent agency created by Congress. So it is controlled by them. And Operation Choke Point was an executive mandate that used the FDIC as the arm to put the pressure on these banks to debank all kinds of people in all kinds of industries. It's not just cannabis.
And
happy to be corrected on a Monday. Thank you.
And we need Doge to go and enter the FDIC now.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We need huge audits on this stuff, and we need this to be shut down. This is
I like my audits big too.
Yes.
Huge audit.
Huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
audit every line item.
I'm with that. I'm so with that. Well, and speaking of audits, we're going to go to the Auditor General himself, Mr. Yarrow Kubrin. He is the founder, or no, he's not the founder. He just works for InZone Properties, and he does cannabis and real estate, and every once in a while when there's money
I'm exiting that position. Let me do my own intro.
You're exiting that position?
Yeah. I'll do my own
You
intro,
haven't sent me a new introduction for you. Just so you know, you were supposed to do that last week.
My own intro.
You were supposed to do that last week.
Your own intro, and it's totally fine. Coming up next, from the Sebastopol Shire, second generation cannabis cultivator and real estate ninja, Yarrow motherfucking Kubrin. Woo!
Yeah.
You're a ninja now, huh?
Canned applause. Yeah, can't you see? I'm wearing black. It's my black belt.
Interesting.
So allow me to riff, ramble, and rant, because that's what I'm going to do unless you turn off my internet connection. So imagine, if you will, that you're walking down the street and you're a woman and you got your kid with you and your kid's cousin, and you're in a beautiful bucolic town in the wine country, and all of a sudden some guy comes from behind and starts trying to hump you, and you push him off because that's what you do, and he picks up a rock and beats you in the fucking face. And imagine if, after years of going through the court process, after being permanently disfigured, after the stitches, the medical bills, the trauma, and the harm to your family, imagine if at the end of that, when probation is calling for 9 years prison for the sexual predator who assaulted you, imagine if the judge gives him probation and in part blames cannabis for his behavior. So that's what happened here in Sonoma County this past month. And when we talk about the destigmatization of cannabis, normally we're talking about respecting patients' rights. We're talking about increasing access to retail. We're talking about decreasing the taxes to treat this industry like any other industry. And we're talking about the normalization of cannabis. But the opposite of that is also true, which is that people are using cannabis as a scapegoat for behavior that is abhorrent, immoral, and unjustified. And we've got judges who, when they haven't sent people to jail for cannabis, are now not sending people to jail for sexual assault because the predator used some weed? As everybody on High at 9 News knows, or at least anybody who's used a little bit of cannabis, there is not a single strain or potency amount that has ever caused any of you to want to jump out of the bush and try to rape a woman, and when she rebukes you, bash her in the face with a rock. That is just not a clinical side effect of cannabis. And so my article today is a stain upon my region, and probably the saddest thing that I will ever read on this news show. And so without further ado, it breaks my heart. Grave mistake. Santa Rosa woman left disfigured after brutal attack. Judge grants attacker probation. Trevor Colombano was charged with attacking a Santa Rosa woman in October of 2023. A judge sentenced him this week to probation and ordered him to register as a sex offender and receive mental health treatment. A Santa Rosa woman was walking her dog on Cordelia Drive one sunlit Saturday afternoon when the neighbor emerged suddenly and clamped his hands around her neck. That moment on October 28th, 2023, marked the beginning of a violent and unprovoked assault, one that unfolded in front of neighbors, the woman's young daughter, and her cousin. Court records detail how Trevor Colombano, 38, launched a frenzied assault that left his victim permanently disfigured. And yet, in a ruling that sparked widespread outrage, Sonoma County Judge Dana Simonds sentenced Colombano on Monday to probation, a decision met with shock and condemnation from the victim's prosecutors and the public. The fact that this judge could release him on probation for what he did, I'm still so mind blown over it. The victim, now 41, said she's living, by the way, in the Midwest and fled California after the assault. There's no words, honestly, she said. Minutes later, she called the ruling a grave mistake by the judge. Simonds did not respond for a request for comment. The Press Democrat was not present for most of Colombano's sentencing, and the transcript of the ruling was not yet immediately available. Public reaction was swift. Social media users flooded comment sections with demands for Simonds' resignation or recall, accusing her of failing to protect the community and questioning her fitness for the bench. A petition on change.org, which I invite all of you to sign, has gathered more than 3,500 signatures to date, and this just came out last week. Colombano's defense attorney, Roy Miller, emphasized his client's remorse and insisted his sincerity was not in question. Oh, okay. So if you assault somebody, as long as you're really, truly sorry afterwards, it's okay. It's important for criminal defendants to accept responsibility for their actions in part of the rehabilitation process, and Trevor did just that, his attorney said. Columbano pled no contest on June 10th, 2024 to mayhem, assault with a deadly weapon, and sexual battery. He made an open plea. Pay attention, y'all. He made an open plea, meaning there was no sentencing agreement in place. Prosecutors sought a 9-year prison sentence, arguing the attack's severity made probation inappropriate under California law. Probation officials agreed, recommending incarceration. Simply put, the offense is far too violent, far too bizarre, and far too random to be able to adequately ensure public safety at this juncture should the defendant be released from custody on probation. Probation officials wrote in a pre-sentence report which details the crime, the defendant's background, criminal history, mental health, and sentencing recommendations. But citing Columbano's stress and cannabis use as factors, the judge instead sentenced him to 4 years of probation. He must register as a sex offender, undergo some mental health treatment as a resident at a residential facility where he isn't confined, but must follow house rules and a curfew. His probation terms include drug testing, mandatory medication, and a ban on alcohol or unprescribed drugs, including cannabis, even with a medical recommendation. Sonoma County District Attorney Carla Rodriguez condemned the ruling. Justice was not served, she said in a statement. She added, Mr. Columbano is a menace to public safety, period, and should be sitting in prison. That won't happen, and as there is no further action legally allowed by our office, the community, and more importantly, the victim will have to live with the consequences of this sentence. I'm incredibly disappointed in the outcome of this case. At the heart of the case was whether Columbano suffered mental health issues and whether he was likely to reoffend. According to his pre-sentence report, a psychologist examined him and wrote in February that he suffered from psychosis at the time of the attack and remained delusional. The doctor recommended antipsychotic medication, stress management, and cognitive behavioral therapy. Miller pointed to Columbano's background, describing him as a San Jose State University graduate with a banking career and no criminal history. He said Columbano exhibited no issues while incarcerated and argued that the therapy and drug abstinence would prevent future incidents. Now, the drug abstinence, I guess they're talking about the cannabis. This was a very difficult case for the judge, Miller said. In the end, Judge Simonds looked at the time Trevor spent in custody, his clear evidence of rehabilitation while in custody, the clear mental health issue, and the lack of criminal record in making her decision. So, I could go on and on and on. I would hope that every viewer not only smashes the like button today, not only follows, but also signs that petition. And I think it's important, if we're going to be taken seriously, that we remember that we want cannabis to be treated equally with parity for other things, not scapegoated, but not used as an out for people who deserve to be in. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News. I'd like to hear what the rest of you think and feel about this.
This doesn't surprise me at all. Sonoma County has been, pretty horrible to cannabis in general. I was a cannabis cultivator in Sonoma County myself for many years. But first of all, I think this guy should definitely be put in jail for a long time. He needs to have somebody smash him in the face with a fucking rock. And then, yeah, I mean, these judges that do this kind of shit are ruining cannabis. The judge should be removed from the bench immediately. The judge should probably be questioned for their integrity. I mean, this is a woman's life that's been fucking ruined. Yeah. And to blame cannabis for it is just some typical like reefer madness type bullshit. And when you do a crime like that, your brain is fucked. Rehabilitation is likely not possible. You probably smoked some meth or did some heroin or did some other fuck shit.
Some fentanyl.
That rewired your brain, or you just have mental illness, and sometimes sick dogs got to be put the fuck down. And that guy needs to go to jail and probably needs to be smashed in the head, or just he needs to be killed. Personally, kill that motherfucker.
Hey. He did the assault in front of the lady's 13-year-old daughter and 13-year-old cousin. Yeah, this is the biggest scumbag. Very frustrating.
That was the judge.
And
the judge should be
and the lawyer
put in jail.
And the lawyer.
Everybody in Sonoma County watching this, if you know where this judge lives, drive by the judge's house and egg that fucking house. You see that judge at fucking Whole Foods, throw food on them, trash them in public, throw juice on this fucking judge, and clown her off the goddamn bench. Fuck that judge.
Let me tell you what you can actually do.
Eggs are too expensive right now to use them in that manner. I want to remind everybody of the increasing cost of an omelet. I think I
made like four eggs this morning. It was fantastic.
Yeah, you had to fucking do a home equity line of credit to make that.
It was great. I've been doing it every day because everyone's complaining about the price of eggs.
I think the thing we need to remember is that the stigmatization goes in both directions, right? We're not treated with parity, and as long as cannabis is able to be used as an excuse for immoral behavior, the stigma related to the plant will continue to persist. And show me the science this judge relied upon. Show me the research and where it was produced and the case study and the double-blind placebo that says that cannabis use contributes to sexual assault. There is none.
Or violence. Cannabis isn't related to violence at all. And that's why this judge's decision is indicative of how their stupid fucking smooth brain works, and they have to be removed from the bench. So if you're an attorney and you're watching this, Omar Figueroa, if you're watching this, I believe Omar was running for judge in Sonoma County. Wasn't he, Yarrow?
He did.
Yeah, he'd be a great judge.
He would.
He would be great. He represented me criminally multiple times.
Me too. Yeah. Multiple times. And got me off.
I think Omar Figueroa, if you're watching this, or if anybody else is watching this, he should be pinged and tapped to opine on this, to have this judge censured. I don't know what they do to judge.
Well, hold on. Well, speaking of which, Matt, in the description of this video on YouTube, there is a link to a something that you guys can sign to have this judge removed. Am I correct on that, Yarrow? Can you go into that for a second?
Nice.
Where's the link? I'm a dork.
The link, you emailed it to me.
Yes, correct.
And I've already put it in the description of this video. And that is basically a petition that people can go and sign online to have this judge removed. Am I correct on that?
Yes. And I think that, separate from the eggs, right? Like, how do we in this representative democracy let people know, not on our watch are we going to have officials miscarry justice in this way? And I think the outpouring of support for that petition is one of the strongest ways of demonstrating how this judge's ruling cuts against the grain of the shared values of all Americans of any faith, of any culture, of any race, of any gender. If we can't keep a mother and her child safe on the streets, at a minimum, we can hold the predator accountable. And if we don't do that, we're not making America great again. We're not even mids, Matt. We're terrible. And we have to demand better from the people who are entrusted with doing their job on behalf of the rest of us.
This is third world country bullshit. And I say, and I am one to advocate violence. I'm going to go full send right here.
There we go.
That judge needs only fucking
mids violence.
The guy does too.
Say the judge's name again, Carl. What's the judge's
Simonds.
name?
Judge Dana Simonds.
Anna? Is that what it is?
No, Dana. Yeah. Judge Dana Simonds.
That's a woman.
Yep.
Dana Simonds of Sonoma County, California, needs to be flogged, egged, embarrassed, tarred, and feathered in public. So if you see this bitch-ass judge, I advocate for some form of mids violence. Mids violence. Not overt, not smash in the face, not eye for an eye, but I think someone could walk up to her in the Whole Foods in Sonoma County and dump a fucking gallon of milk on this bitch's head. Fuck that judge.
It's questionable from looking at the pictures whether or not she's actually a woman. We could start there. And how do you, as a woman, side with an attacker and a sex offender who disfigures another woman with no warning and no reason other than he got in an argument with his girlfriend and claims he's on cannabis and that's the reason why? If you're a judge and you buy into that and then you put him on probation, you're You're an idiot at the very least, and you're probably corrupt at the most. There's something else going on here. Like, how could you
100%.
even make this decision? It seems completely insane.
We need a Luigi Maggioni for judges with fuck shit decisions. That's what we need. And I call for all vigilantes across America. If judges are doing fuck shit,
Yeah.
they gotta go. Take them out.
Fair enough. And I believe we got an apology from the C word, you guys, for his super chat from last week. He says, "I know I said some things you don't like. Love y'all though, even if I do not agree with your choices. Perhaps we can hug it out at SF Spacewalk, April 14th through the 21st. At 7 of Cali's finest marijuana lounges with 7 of Cali's best cultivators." Well, we will take that, and I will and I will share that with some people as well. Seaward, thank you so much for that big old super chat, man. Much appreciated. We've had a couple other super chats from Artie and from from the Seaward also. They're all just goading Nick. You know what I'm saying, which has been fun to read. So thank you guys all for all of those and whatnot. And we are going to move right into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back. I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. You get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that, they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Left California. No, sorry. The judge. The judge.
Oh, and we are back, you guys. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com.
I'm Cole Preston, and today I'm at Blue Island Beer Company for the premiere of my mini documentary on legalization policy in Illinois. I've been following cannabis policy since colorful Colorado legalized it all the way back in the day, and when my home state of Illinois decided to legalize it, I just became enamored. I wondered, what would it actually look like? If you'd like to see how Illinois fell short in achieving meaningful reform in their cannabis policy, you can watch my mini-doc now at colememo.com/mini-doc.
All right, we are back, you guys. We are back, man. Oh man, it gets pretty feisty going on over here. We did get another super chat in from El Guapotron who says, "You know why, you guys."
Well, at $4.20, I believe I do know why.
I bet. And coming up next, that's right, he's a ganjapreneur, a cannabis, and a mids influencer, you guys. You may recognize him from the Discovery Channel TV show Weed Country, where he goes to jail for opening the first dispensary in Vallejo. That's the Valley Joe in California in the 707. He is also the creator of Midzotics, the brand found in multiple states throughout the country. And that's right, it is none other than Mr. Matthew Shotwell.
Good morning. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am here in Trap City, USA, which is Vallejo.
It's traptastic.
Yeah, it's very traptastic. Yeah, there's hookers outside of my house right now. It's amazing in this liberal shithole city that I live in. Today's article comes out of West Virginia, which is the brethren state, the redneck state to my home state of Virginia. People often confuse Virginia and West Virginia, but they are different states if you didn't take state knowledge stuff in school. Today, there's a bill introduced today in the West Virginia House of Delegates that would allow registered medical marijuana patients and caregivers to cultivate their own plants. So House Bill 3230, filed by Delegate Mike Pushkin, has been referred to the House Health and Human Resources Committee. The measure would amend the state's medical cannabis law to allow home cultivation for qualifying patients. The bill states, notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, a patient who receives certification from a practitioner and is in possession of a valid identification card issued by the Bureau, or a caregiver who is in possession of a valid identification card issued by the Bureau, may grow medical cannabis in its plant form, provided that the medical cannabis may only be used by the patient in accordance with certification from a certifying physician. Provided, however, that the patient or caregiver may not grow more than only 10 plants, no more than 5 of which may be mature flowering plants. So mids, better than nothing though. West Virginia legalized medical marijuana in 2017, but the law prohibits patients from cultivating their own plants. Instead, patients must obtain medical marijuana from licensed dispensaries which only sell non-smokable forms of the substance. What, gummies? The fuck is that? If enacted, HB 3230 would only allow patients greater access to medical marijuana, particularly those facing affordability or supply issues. The bill's next steps depend on committee action before it can advance to the full House for consideration. A separate medical marijuana bill, HB 3229, was also filed today. That measure would add marijuana flower to the list of lawful medical uses of medical marijuana in West Virginia. So this is pretty interesting because in Virginia and in West Virginia, weed has been super illegal for a really long time. I was arrested in 2001 for 1 gram of weed and went to Fairfax County Jail for 1 gram of weed for longer than the person who smashed someone's face with a rock for being on said weed. So I think this is a step in the right direction. 10 plants is pretty mids, 5 flowering, 5 in veg. We all know that this is, the Trojan horse that's going to open things up. And there is a bazillion acres in West Virginia where no weed is being grown, supposedly, but there's actually millions of acres. And from my friends in Virginia, they're saying that West Virginia is the Humboldt of the East Coast. So this is going to be huge. There's a lot of farms growing illegally in West Virginia right now. A lot of the hemp stuff is going on, and a lot of farms in actual Virginia. So I'm excited to see this. I think this is an economic opportunity for people, and it's just going to be the first domino that kicks over for more plants and more plants. And what invariably happens in these things is people get their medical marijuana card for 10 plants, and then they grow 1,000 plants, and as they should. Full send it. Big plants, big gardens, and the fact that people are even allowed to grow plants in West Virginia, I think, is a big win for my redneck cousin state next door.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Man,
I think West Virginia has the highest overdose rate in the U.S., 31.5 per 100,000 people. I think that when they legalize cannabis, people will get that head change and not use opiates. Everybody knows that. The pill mills that came out of West Virginia and the destruction that's been done to that state through fentanyl and Purdue Pharma, and cannabis is the only thing that's going to save them.
Well, West Virginia is a statistically impoverished, low economic income state. There's just a lot of poverty there. And I think this is a pathway for a lot of the farmers that have been, growing corn and just having agriculture and all those things there to really come up. It's a huge ag state. So I think this is bodes well for the future of ag in West Virginia. And there's a lot of mega grows in West Virginia that the DEA is constantly trying to bust. And you're right, opioids are a huge problem in West Virginia. I mean, they're a huge problem in a lot of states, but these tend to target the states with, lower incomes, lower education base, and and where there ain't shit to do. There ain't a lot of shit to do in West Virginia, to be honest. I've been there. There ain't a lot of shit to do in West Virginia, but do drugs, make babies.
Hold on, I thought it was like one of the biggest moonshine capitals in the country.
It is. It is because there's so much space and there ain't shit to do.
Yeah.
So the devil, the idle mind is the
Very,
devil works.
very rural.
We're going to make some whiskey. We're going to grow some drugs and all the things. So I'm excited about this because it's providing a pathway for people to get some economic opportunity, some freedom, and for farms to start planting. And then the paybacks and all those things will start happening with mega farms, and they'll pay off the local sheriff to get their 1,000 plant grow overlooked. But good for West Virginia.
I wonder if in West Virginia they call them MAGA farms.
Make mids great again. That's what's going to happen in West Virginia. Make mids.
You have any thoughts on this, Yarrow? Usually you always have something on something. I think it's great news, though. You have nothing. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
It's not that I don't have thoughts. It's that they've already been expressed by the other pundits.
Oh, okay. I see you taking a page out of Jenny Beth's book today. Cute.
No,
Cute.
I'm actually happy, not snarly. There's a difference.
Fair enough. We did get a super chat in from Miss Leah Patrick, who I'm not sure exactly if this is her super chat or not, but she does say, thank you all for always bringing us the news and love this family. Free the plant, especially in Texas. Well said. And Brian Dombrowski just threw in a super chat who says, outlaw party tonight from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. at Pour Choices. That's P-O-U-R Choices. That's 401 East 6th Street in the great city of Austin, Texas. So
that's a great name for a
Pour Choices.
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like that should be in bar in Sonoma County too.
Well, Brian's got some roots in Sonoma County too. So he may be in the big star state, but that's because he's a tumbleweed. So he's still got some 707 in him.
yes, most definitely. And on that, we are going to roll into our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade. And in a GMP certified facility, so you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a.
But he deserves.
That's not enough for that.
No, I know. He deserves death sentence if you ask me.
Oh, and we are back, you guys. We are back. Coming up next. Why aren't you? There you go. Coming up next, that's right, it's Mr. Travis Cullen. Travis was just 21 when he was sentenced to 11 years in prison for a nonviolent cannabis offense. His first felony. That experience changed his life and sparked a passion for advocating for others behind bars for weeks. Now, as a cannabis entrepreneur, Travis uses his platform to push for justice and reform, determined to make a difference in an industry that once cost him his freedom. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Travis Cullen.
Yo. Before I read this article, Duped by Biden, I have to come out the closet and make the full confession. I am a disillusioned Democrat. I am from Minnesota. I really like our cannabis bill that was written on the state level. And I think the Democrats have a better plan to address social equity for cannabis. But at this point, I was duped by Biden and I'm disillusioned. Trump, please help. Duped by Biden, the truth about his cannabis betrayal. For years, Democrats have used cannabis reform as a talking point. But what has Joe Biden actually done? After 4 years in his office, his record on marijuana policy tells a stark story of broken promises and failed leadership. During the 2020 presidential debates, Biden made a bold declaration to Senator Cory Booker. I think we should decriminalize marijuana, period. I think anyone who has a record should be let out of jail, their records expunged, completely zeroed out. The moment was electrifying. Booker's expression reflected both pleasure and disbelief. Biden's statement was a stark departure from his historically cautious stance on cannabis. His promise ignited hope, especially for the families of the roughly 2,000 individuals still incarcerated for federal cannabis charges. At that moment, it seemed clear. Both Democrat nominees in 2020 supported freeing these prisoners. Biden's words galvanized the cannabis community, a community that in many ways helped push him to victory. But what happened next would prove that his promise was nothing more than political theater. Biden's legacy on cannabis, a history of harm. 1981 to 1995, architect of mass incarceration. As a result, is the leader of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Biden pushed for harsher drug policies, helping to create the federal drug czar position to coordinate aggressive drug enforcement. 1984 to 1986, expanding the drug war. Biden co-authored the Comprehensive Control Act, expanding federal drug penalties and allowing police to seize property without proving guilt. Co-sponsored the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, introducing mandatory minimum sentences and enforcing the infamous 100-to-1 crack cocaine powder racial disparity, disproportionately targeting low-income and minority communities. In 1988, doubling down, Biden helped craft the next Anti-Drug Abuse Act, establishing the Office of National Drug Policy Control to further entrench harsh drug enforcement policies. 1989 calls for even harsher penalties. Biden criticized President Bush's drug war escalation for not being tough enough, demanding more police, prosecutors, judges, and prison cells. 1994, the crime bill's devastation. Biden offered the 1994 crime bill leading to mass incarceration by expanding police forces, building more prisons, and adding new federal death penalty provisions, including for drug-related offenses. Biden bragged about this bill. Impact: 60 new death penalties, 100,000 new cops, 125 new state prison cells. In 2003, Biden targeted raves and drug users, sponsored the Rave Act, punishing event organizers for drug-related offenses at their venues, leading to free speech concerns and harm reduction efforts. Biden's clemency, a smokescreen of inaction. Despite his campaign promises, Biden's clemency efforts have been nothing more than symbolic gestures. Nearly all the clemency grants he has issued were to individuals already eligible for relief under Trump's First Step Act, a bipartisan reform passed during Trump's first term. Biden has done little to free those still languishing under outdated draconian drug laws he helped create. Even more telling is Biden's selective mercy. After spending decades fueling mass incarceration, especially for crack cocaine, he pardoned his own son, Hunter Biden, for the very same offense that put thousands of people, predominantly from marginalized communities, behind bars. Meanwhile, men like Edwin Rubis remain in prison serving 40-year sentence for nonviolent marijuana offenses, despite legalization efforts and bipartisan calls for clemency. A new path forward. Fast forward to Trump's second term in 2025. Trump has appointed Alice Marie Johnson as pardon czar, a major step forward for the criminal justice advocacy movement. Johnson was sentenced to life in prison as a first-time offender and was granted a pardon by Trump. I can tell you personally, after serving 8 years in federal prison on cannabis charges, Alice Marie Johnson's appointment to pardon czar is unprecedented. No one knows the horrifying stories of the draconian federal drug sentences like ex-prisoners do. Does this move signal that Trump is open to freeing cannabis prisoners? We believe so. As a responsible criminal justice advocates, especially for those incarcerated on cannabis charges, we must be willing to embrace Trump's policy when they align with fixing the broken federal prison system. And that brings us to the final point of the article, one summed up by a simple but powerful truth. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. That's it.
Oh man. Joe Biden, I wonder. So I have a question, okay? Because he did make those one pardons that didn't actually free anybody. Are those going to get rescinded because they were done with his auto pen?
I saw that. I was like, I wish they could have just wrote the auto pen to let Edwin Rubis and Parker Coleman out. But my determination is that they hate cannabis users.
They do.
For some reason. There's no logic to them not letting Edwin Rubis, Parker Coleman out of prison. Michael Woods, sentenced to life in prison from Canada, so he's a first-time felon. It's just, there's no logic that Biden just skipped over them, except he was asleep at the office, letting weirdos make decisions.
They did let a lot of weirdos make decisions, that's for sure, within that whole admin.
No, I mean, look, Biden, you really touched on. I mean, Biden was one of the first people to help usher in legislation that made property owners liable for the activity in their commercial spaces under the RAVE Act, and to sort of go after the property owners for that. Under the auspices, it was like a crack house law type type thing. And for those of us that were raving at that time, it was pretty.
Oh, bro, the raves
unfair.
were amazing, bro.
Yeah. Don't give me a light show.
Home
dog,
base.
and a little bit of Vicks Vapor Rub.
Home base in Oakland had the best raves. The Home Base warehouse.
To this day, Hagenberg Avenue. What you know about Home Base, right? And but Biden is in favor of compassion for drug users if it's his son, and these people who are being sentenced to life in prison or be giving kingpin status. We just needed Judge Dana Simonds over there on their cases, and they would have gotten off with three soups and a mea culpa. The thing is that we don't have we have so much discretion around what those judicial outcomes are. And I'm not saying that there should be mandatory minimums, but we have so much discretion over what those judicial outcomes are. We see two things. We see racist trends in judicial outcomes that are statistically significant. And we see judges that are able to really throw the book at people for victimless crimes. And it really does kind of bring up the topic of criminal justice reform and not preventing judges from having too much discretion, but also putting some guardrails around that.
Well, they don't give judges discretion usually to go down unless you're a rat and you cooperate, but they definitely give you discretion to go up. So when, let's say Edwin Rubis, when he went in for sentencing, the judge probably could have gave him like 20 years to 40 years, but he got 4.
But those mandatory minimums are I think, also troubling, especially when it comes to victimless crimes.
Mandatory minimums are a terrible policy. Terrible policy.
Unless you own a prison or you get to sell the little bars of soap to the prison.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you own Canteen, you're crushing it.
That brings up an important point. When are we going to get rid of the mandatory minimums on cannabis? 100 plants is 5-year minimum mandatory. 1,000 plants is a 10-year minimum mandatory. 100 kilos is a 5-year minimum mandatory. 1,000 kilos is a 10-year minimum mandatory. And those double if you got a prior.
So those are good examples of where they don't need to wait for the DEA and the scheduling and reclassification conversation that may or may not go anywhere. Those are perfect examples of where the federal government could reform without a descheduling to take some of the teeth out of those potential outcomes for cultivators or operators, and they haven't.
Well, now
that's a fair criticism.
Money lobbying to keep the laws, and it's so painful watching this happen.
Yeah, you have any thoughts on this, Jesse or Matt?
The old rave days and the progression of laws. It's interesting to see how this is now the current whole Biden thing. How he's going to pardon people, but it's a mess, and he's been asleep at the wheel. Edwin Rubis. I was wondering why he didn't get out, and you have to wonder, like, what's the backstory there? Like, can you give us some data on that?
Biden hates marijuana users.
But,
yeah, he didn't care about our demographic. That's all it was.
Yeah,
Edwin's got a great case, all pot. Yeah, Biden decided he was going to make a different demographic, crack users, happy with them, and he decided that marijuana users were not important and don't vote for. That's all it was.
And Biden in essence was the author of the '94 crime bill. And so you shouldn't expect him to want to be a friendly to this. He's always been an avid prohibitionist ever since his beginnings, his infancy in politics.
His brother smokes crack too.
Didn't some cannabis people get pardoned by Biden?
Yeah. Tons of people got pardoned, Matt. But here's the thing. No, hold on. That is true. People did get pardoned by him, but no one was released out of jail or prison. Okay, that's the difference. It was basically if you got caught with some weed at a national park and had a ticket for that or whatnot, then that was eliminated from your record in his blanket pardons that he gave out. No one was released from jail.
I heard on good authority that Biden didn't have the authority to even do that blanket pardon, and you have to issue authorities one case per case. So those people aren't even getting that stuff off their record.
Hold on. So now there's two reasons that those are all going to get rescinded is because of that point that you just made there, plus the auto pen, Travis. So then I guess everyone there was all just a whole bunch of just a press release, just gaslighting people. And shout out to El Guapotron who threw in another super chat who says Pink Midzotics Racing Uni. He's loving it. He's loving it, Matt. He's loving it. Wish we had the Bobcat here today. It's all right. He's out catting off. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
catching some.
We need in the next election. We need the candidates to outright call for decriminalization of cannabis. Straight up. We need the Democrats to make big promises and fix this fake woke stuff they got going on. If you ask me, they didn't do anything.
They're not going to do that. You're like what's that one song? You're wishing on a star to find out who you are. Yeah, that's that. Shout out to Ben LeBone, deschedule now, who says peace in the super chat. And I'm gonna roll into our final story of the day, you guys. Man, I got some more. Maybe this is good news. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this because 3 marijuana bills pass out of the Georgia Senate before the crossover deadline, you guys. That's right. Marijuana has been a major topic in the Georgia Senate this legislative session, with 3 bills passing the chamber just ahead of the deadline Thursday to keep them in play this year, you guys. That's right. 2 of the measures, Senate Bill 33 and Senate Bill 254, seek to restrict what's legally available at convenience stores and smoke shops. The third, Senate Bill 220, would expand and modify access to medical marijuana. The measure by Senator Matt Brass, Republican from Noonan, would increase the allowed legal concentration of cannabidiol in dispensed medical cannabis tenfold to 50%, while reducing the amount of medical cannabis one can legally possess by the same factor or 2 ounces. The net result is a higher concentration of cannabidiol per dose with the same total limit on possession. Cannabidiol is the non-psychoactive ingredient associated with the relief of pain and other symptoms of disease. And Brass, the chairman of this powerful Senate Rules Committee, said he had concerns about the health effects of vaping, which is a very popular way of consuming the substance. But he said he was balancing that against patients' needs for immediate relief. In a quote, he says, "They may need this medicine to work a little bit faster than 1 hour or 2 hours," he said. Senate Bill 220 would also add cancer and lupus to conditions for which medical cannabis can be prescribed, and it would strike the current requirement that other allowable conditions such as multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease be severe or end stage. And it would allow pharmacies to dispense medical cannabis to patients and the designated caregivers for adults. All of this was too much for some Brass some of Brass's fellow Republicans. Senator Ed Seltzer, Republican from Ashworth, said long-term marijuana use has a massive impact on health and brain function. And in a quote says, "The density of marijuana we're talking about here is about getting people stoned," he said. Senator Randy Robertson, Republican from Cataloola, the Senate Majority Whip, called medical marijuana a gateway drug, and SB 220 still passed a 39-17 with help from Democrats. Another measure, SB 33, faced minimal resistance, and the bill by Senator Kay Kilpatrick, Republican from Murrieta, would add certain intoxicating cannabinoids to current regulation on the sale of Delta-9. That substance is legally available at convenience stores and smoke shops when the THC concentration is below 0.3% THC. And Senate Bill 33 would add Delta 8 and Delta 10 and Delta 11 to that cap, as well as to the mandate for random state inspections of consumable hemp products. Kilpatrick, an orthopedic hand surgeon, said her bill would increase consumer safety. She said, "There are producers in China and elsewhere who may be polluting their product with industrial solvents, heavy metals, and other contaminants," she says. In a quote, she says, "It's a consumer protection bill that is not intended to impact processors that are already testing and labeling their products appropriately," Kilpatrick said. And that measure passed 50-6. And a third measure, Senate Bill 254, brought chaos to the Senate floor after a major amendment, you guys. That's right. The bill originally intended to limit the amount of THC, the ingredient that causes the high, in consumable hemp products, such as gummies, tinctures, and drinks. But an amendment on the Senate floor introduced a ban on the sale of all beverages containing THC. The measure passed 42-14 with Democrats and Republicans on both sides, and all three bills are now awaiting action by the State House of Representatives, which has until April 4th to act on them during this legislative session, you guys. Well, we're going to follow along these bills out in the great state of Georgia, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. They're banning drinks in Georgia, you guys. What's happening?
I'm going to crack open a Freedom THC soda as I say this is a bunch of BS haters.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, look, we can blame government. We can blame the states for having to patch together reasonable reform because the Farm Bill hasn't been updated. But we can also blame the industry for not taking a more leadership position in terms of supply chain certainty, testing, potency limitations. The hemp side of things has been drastically underregulated, while the cannabis side of things has been dramatically overregulated. And so I think that it's going to be a continued trend that we're going to see states regulating against hemp-derived cannabinoids until either there's an update to the Farm Bill or they can have some confidence, which I doubt they will, that the intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoid industry is going to put meaningful guardrails around itself.
Mm-hmm. As long as the Republicans are in power, the hemp bill will be fine. Mitch McConnell owns a huge hemp farm. They're all making tons of money off of it. They need to leave the hemp bill alone, if you ask me. I think it's great. You cannot govern hemp and think it's a good thing, or any sort of cannabis. Mm-hmm. Free it all.
We should have two different sets of guidelines, non-intoxicating and intoxicating cannabinoids, irrespective of which plant they come from. We should lower the taxes and create some parity so that cannabis operators have a fighting chance of staying alive, and so that hemp operators aren't able to just go make these synthetic, secondarily derived cannabinoids and play mad scientist with what they're putting in people's bodies.
Who's ever died? Who's gotten hurt? Nobody. Just free it all. The Republicans are right about this.
Yet, because half of these things, I mean, look, if you're just talking about things that come out of mother liquor or that are naturally derived, but once you start going into those secondary processes, that stuff, you can't tell me it's safe.
Okay.
Now, I can't tell you that it's unsafe because we don't have any of the data, but that is the reason why there are government agencies to protect consumers, and we don't have that, and it's the wild, wild west. And so it doesn't matter who's making money, because once some 11-year-old buys a 10,000 milligram shot out of a gas station
And falls
walks
asleep
in front of a semi truck,
Oh, stop.
you know what? That's going to be a problem.
I think that's the semi truck's fault.
It just takes one dumb judge to think whatever they want to think and declare whatever they want to declare.
Yep.
And you know, everybody should go and study what Dr. Talleyrand has been putting out about type 1, type 2, and type 3 cannabis, and how that would really clear a lot of things up on the legislation front. And the other problem is that you might not be able to explain away minor cannabinoids or converted cannabinoids, but it's not good to smoke mold. And there's plenty of really terrible hemp product that's on the market nationwide in every gas station that is harmful to smoke for many reasons, not just the fact that there's synthetic cannabinoids.
Amen to that.
It's
called Midzotics, not Moldzotics. There's a big difference, and everybody deserves to have something of quality in their lungs.
Well, Yarrow, I do happen to agree with Travis that that if a kid did drink one of those things and then walked into the street and got hit by a truck, the onus would be on the truck driver, because it's always pedestrians always have the right of way on the road, and that's in all 50 states. Even it'll be on 51 states once Canada becomes our 51st state.
Greenland
Never
too.
happening.
Listen, I'm not talking about who's legally responsible, okay? If some 11-year-old darts in front of a semi-truck on a freeway, I don't care who's legally responsible. I care about having a society that protects itself, whether it's a woman who's been attacked by a sexual predator or a child that has access to a product that should be age restricted. We don't need to operate in a vacuum. We need to be very
Why is it age
practical.
restricted? I don't even understand that. None of this makes sense.
Well, it's age restricted, Travis, because it's an intoxicating product, and the fact is we don't want to be intoxicating children. All right, that's why.
Would you rather eat a gummy or Adderall?
It's not an either or. It's a thing of the it's a question of responsibility. It's a question of responsibility of the fact that we do not want. It's a question of responsibility in the fact that we don't want minors to be able to intoxicate themselves. We want the minors to be able to enjoy their childhood and focus on that.
To shut up,
huh? Well, that's why God made duct tape, Travis.
Oh, then that's a good thing for them.
Until
they legalize cannabis, I think up here, alcohol is tearing our country apart. And
but it's like
there's only one government.
Yeah, alcohol's age restricted too, though, Travis.
It's a stain on cannabis it's a stain on cannabis industry that there's the unregulated side of hemp, and they're using the child argument against the entire industry at large. And then you have a kid who goes to a fucking gas station, gets some Delta 8 or HHC or THCV or THCP, THCO, and they get high, and then they go to school, and then they just call it weed, and it's fucking up us because kids are getting fucked up off of gas station shit, and it does need to be regulated, because honestly, us in cannabis have been getting shit on with regulations. Overregulated more than fucking nuclear waste, and then you can go.
You guys just want to make more money. That's all
you
you
can go
want.
to MJ Blowcon and fucking open up your bags of fucking hemp and just trap it right there, which is great. Get your fucking money. But there's a difference and a disparity in the regulation that we've endured in fucking cannabis, and millions are being made in hemp. And I'm happy that all my homies and the ladies are making a ton of money in hemp, but they need to either back down on our shit or increase theirs. So like Yarrow said,
that is so the problem with America, because you're not making money. You want to regulate it. It's not about
that's not what he's saying. That's not what he's saying, Travis.
I love this.
That was a good spin.
You are making it easy for me. So thank you for that. Let me break it down for you like a rifle. Okay?
Oh, here we go.
Number one, if you think you can win the argument that there is not a compelling public interest for all people in making anything intoxicating age restricted, I don't
say that, but I just say realistically, no one's got hurt.
Hold on, Travis, let Yarrow make his point.
I will run circles around you, and afterwards you're going to be like, what the fuck just happened? Okay. There is a compelling public interest in having intoxicating products be age restricted. It doesn't matter whether they come from moonshine or marijuana or Adderall or anything. And the exception may be under the care of a medical practitioner for certain purposes.
That's what I mean.
Number two, until we regulate psychotropic cannabinoids and non-psychotropic cannabinoids without paying as much attention to which plant it came from, we will have overregulation on one side and underregulation on the other side. We need to have one come down and one come up so that there is parity. It is both equal, it is competitive, and it is fair, and it is science-based instead of just the craziness that's been the overregulation of cannabis. Hemp is cannabis without offense, okay? And number three, the secondary cannabinoids that are being created through additional extraction processes, the science isn't in yet, and we should not, as a country, allow people to consume things until we know whether it's safe. And
I'm just talking about alcohol.
Hold on.
Until we create guardrails around those secondary things, we cannot say that that is plant medicine, because it's not. That is manufacturing Frankenstein. And until we have some science around that, we owe it to ourselves to say there are safer ways to get high.
What about kratom? I mean, they have so many. Why is cannabis picked up?
Stop, Travis. Just backpedal, bro, and be like, you know what I mean? There needs to be an age gate, bro.
I don't want to get arrested. Don't give kids cannabis, right? Please don't arrest me. But I'm a social justice warrior, right? I can start a brand under hemp and get back on my feet after doing 8 years in prison. I cannot start a brand under a cannabis Democrat, legal, regulated state unless I got millions of dollars or have a big friend like Berner or somebody, right? So for us impoverished people that just got out of prison, the only way we can realistically get into the industry, and this is a Democrat that loves social equity, is start a hemp business. So that's my issue. And like, I just want my people to have money and get up. And when my people get out, I'm like, yo, start a hemp business. It's all we can do.
Yep.
That's not mutually exclusive to age gating those products. And
you're right about the age. Flip-flop. You can't
all right. There we go, you guys. Yes, we got the flip-flop. Yes, we got the flip-flop.
If he's getting Adderall.
Yes.
Well, that's different. You're talking about something that's prescribed.
Yeah, you're conflating apples and oranges.
You're totally right. On the medical side, kids should be able to be prescribed cannabis for various things.
If it's under a doctor's care,
It shouldn't just be open access. Just like you're not going to sell Adderall at the gas station. You shouldn't be able to access D8 if you're 16 years old at the gas station either.
Yep.
No mids for the kids. Fuck them kids.
Yeah, that's right. No mids for the kids. That's right. That's right. I like that.
Running around, you want to be quiet.
They're already dumb enough, first of all.
Travis, when kids are running around and we want them to be quiet, we need to remember that we made the choice to bring them into this world.
That's right.
And we don't get to make them behave all the time the way we would like to. I can tell you the practice is a lot more fun than the parenting part sometimes, but that there is nothing more gratifying than a kid coming up with a little piece of noodle art and some paste and saying Happy Father's Day. That the feeling you get from that is probably for me, the best feeling I've ever had. But that thing about keeping them quiet, kids weren't built, they weren't designed to be quiet. They were designed to drain us to our core. Watch that Netflix special on the octopus, because at the end of that show, the octopus is consumed by its children. So there is a quasi-parasitic relationship at times, but it is still incredibly gratifying. And what we have to remember is that having kids is casting our hope into the future and making us a stakeholder in the world beyond our own existence. And there's something incredibly beautiful about that.
I just feel like it's the only way that they can regulate and hate. Like, I don't agree that anybody has a right to give any child anything. Like, if it's not, you don't do that. But it's like, man, there's so many substances that are available to children that they're not regulating, right? And they're not worried about. It's like they pick on cannabis, and it's just, I just hate it.
Well, they're not picking on hemp, and they're probably not going to.
Well. This has been a great episode, you guys. Happy Monday, everybody. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Anthony out there in the metaverse holding it down. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.